Hello, farmers, and welcome to another episode of The Harvest Season. My name is Al.
And I'm Kelly.
And we're here today to talk about farming games. I said plural there, like we're going to talk about multiple, because the fun thing about this episode is this is an out of time episode. As I mentioned in a previous, probably every single previous episode for the last 2 months as you're listening to this one, is that during the summer I go away for a month, and therefore it's quite difficult to get podcasts out. So we're recording this one, 2 months before? Not quite 2 months. 6 or 7 weeks before, I think, before it comes out. So we will have no news in this episode because, I could try and predict some news if you want. Should we predict some news?
Do you think Silksong will be out by the time this podcast comes out?
I don't think it'll be out, but I think we'll have a release date.
That would be nice. I don't think it'll be out either.
I think we're going to get. I think I've already mentioned this to you, but I think we're getting. I think we will get a date in the June Nintendo Direct. That is my expectation.
Yeah. So that's what I was kind of thinking too. I was kind of shocked when Xbox actually announced like the Game Pass thing.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think they would have announced that were they not just like, if they didn't already have their deal to be exclusive on Switch, console exclusive on Switch at launch, which by the way, they said Game Pass, but they didn't say what platforms it would be on Game Pass. They just said Game Pass. My expectation is it will just be PC on day one, and then maybe a few months later, 6 months or something, it'll come to Xbox.
So that's what I was kind of thinking about too, is like the fact that they didn't mention what it was going to be for.
Exactly.
And like, we haven't had any news in like 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And then suddenly we get some get some Microsoft news. Yeah, that's suspicious. I think they know when it's coming.
Which is like funny too, because like this wasn't even on my radar because I don't really play Xbox stuff, so like, I didn't expect Silksong to be part of that.
Well, it's the thing. I was just scrolling through Twitter. I hadn't started watching the Xbox one because I was like, I'll maybe tune into some of it, but I'll keep paying attention on Twitter. And I saw someone mention, Silksong's coming to Game Pass on day one, and I was like, we've got news. We know when it's coming out. And then I was like, wait, no, we don't know when it's coming out. We just know that when it comes out, it will be on Game Pass. So it's a bit odd, but
Yeah, I got like the Reddit notification, that there was like 20 new Reddit threads in the Silksong channel. And I was like, oh my God, what happened?
So yeah, I do not think that they would have given that announcement if they didn't know when it was coming out. And just with their kind of deal with Nintendo, I suspect that Nintendo are the ones that get to say when it is. And so yeah. Interestingly, we didn't. So the really interesting thing about the Microsoft press conference thing, whatever you want to call it, was that they said that everything they were talking about was coming out in the next 12 months. And then so somebody tweeted at them saying, so that means Silksong is coming out in the next 12 months. And they said, we said what we said. But they then posted a picture of all of the games that they announced, almost all the games they announced, and which ones are coming in 2022 and which ones are coming in 2023. Now,
I didn't see this.
Yeah, so it specifically showed which ones were 2022 and which ones were 2023. And yes, Silksong was not on that list. Now, I think that's interesting because I think that says to me it's coming out in 2022 because they've essentially confirmed that it's coming out in the next 12 months. They have confirmed that. But I don't think they would have been able to say that.
They don't have like the right to announce that.
Yeah, so I think saying it's coming out in the next year is probably very different from saying it's coming out by the end of this year. Those are two very different things. Like that's a whole 6 months difference. So I expect it will be in the next 6 months. I guess we'll see.
We will see.
I talk about this like I actually care. I've not played the first game.
But I feel like at this point it's just like become a joke that not like you
you watch
you watch any sort of these videos and you're like, oh, Silksong?
If you keep predicting it, eventually it will happen. And of course, this last 5 minutes is incredibly out of date by the time people listen to it. So whether we're right or not.
We could be wrong.
It'll be fun to see. Maybe I should wait to edit this episode until after the Nintendo Direct in 2 weeks. Yes. So what were we talking about? I don't know.
No news.
No news. That's what we're talking about. And we were talking about whether we were going to predict any farming news. No, I don't think so. So we're just going to talk about, listeners, have you guessed what it is? You probably already know because I say in the show notes, and I probably said in the tweet. We're going to talk about the updates to Spiritfarer. So in the last episode that Kelly was on, we talked about Spiritfarer, and since then there have been 3 updates to Spiritfarer. I keep changing whether I'm calling them updates or DLC. They're not paid, so I still don't know whether we call them DLC or whether we call them updates, but anyway.
I think they called them DLC.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong on that.
Let's call them DLC because they are. They're downloadable content. You don't get them in the base game. They're updates to the game, but it's still downloadable. So let's call it DLC. It's just free DLC. So we're going to talk about that and basically nothing else. But before that, Kelly, what have you been playing?
So I haven't been playing. I mean, that's a lie. I think I don't think of Cafe Mix as like a game.
I mean, me neither. It feels like a chore.
It kind of, yeah, sometimes, which is awful because of the amount of hours that I've put into it. So like I hate talking about this game because like I the amount that I have dedicated to it while also thinking that it's not a real game in my head, it hurts my soul.
I think it's best not to think about the amount of time we spend on games.
Yeah.
Just in general.
But so I've been playing a lot of Cafe Mix because so I repainted my office and it was like a whole project.
What color?
Because I wanted to do high gloss and it hurt
I think
my
I've
hands.
seen the pictures, haven't I?
Oh yeah, I think I shared them in Slack.
Yeah.
But so that and like doing all of the gardening work made my hands hurt. So like I am a handheld Switch player.
Yes.
So after a while, holding it in my hands was kind of making my hands hurt, which is why I think I've mostly been playing. Yeah. So Cafe Mix, I can just rest it flat and because it's all touchscreen.
Oh yes. So the reason that I don't play it is a reason that you do play it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it's also like I go through periods where I won't touch the game for like 6 months too.
Yes.
So I feel like when I get back into it, I get back into it way too much and then I drop it again. But I've been doing that with Pokemon Go again too. So, I mean, clearly.
Speaking of games that are chores.
Yeah. I feel like I only play it because I'm like, oh, it'll get me out of the house and go on a walk. It gives me something to like do while I'm walking. But it's definitely, that's a chore game.
I think in general I do enjoy Pokemon Go. Like if we're weighting all of the positives and the negatives, I think there are more positives to me than there are negatives. But it's a complicated game in that respect. Yeah,
I agree. Like this whole like I know this probably won't be relevant clearly because the podcast is coming out later, but like this whole like trading event thing.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to trade with.
Well, this is the thing. So there are 2 issues I have with trading that really annoy me about it and really annoy me when they try and get you to do it. So the first one is that it's so physically limited. Now, I kind of understand that because the whole point of this game is like going out and meeting people, blah, 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 blah. Although I do feel like the meeting people was definitely not the original intent of this game, right? It was getting out there, it was walking, right? And they added in meeting people at some point. And I really don't like that they started adding in social aspects to this game.
No, I agree because I just want to go and walk around and like play the game in my own personal privacy.
Exactly. I'm going out and I'm walking. I'm doing that. Let me do everything I can do. But so there is that aspect of things, and it does annoy me that it's so limited. Like even if it was just like, well, they occasionally do these like events where it's like, oh, you can go up to 50 kilometers now, and you're like, okay, great. I can access more people I don't know. It's like I just don't know players near me, and that's my biggest issue with it. So like if you could do it worldwide, I have so many online friends that play this game. We could trade if you could do that, but no,
Oh
they're
my God.
insisting on
They
you
could
have to be
do
physically there.
once a day trade.
Yes.
Unlimited distance.
Yeah. I understand why so the one thing that I would say is that I understand why they don't do it, and because of regionals. They really want their regionals. I mean, I think the regionals idea is interesting, but I also think they're too wedded to it. I like the idea of regionals in essence, but I also think that they like them too much. So I don't know why the regionals have to be so exclusive. Like, I think it's fine to say this Pokemon only spawns in this area, but then why do we need to have and to get it, you have to go there, not trade with someone? Or because you can trade with someone who's been there, they've just come to you and you physically meet them. I don't know why suddenly going, people who live there could trade with anyone around the world, and that, like, they don't have to be exclusive. It's an interesting idea because it then creates that trading. The whole point of trading in the Pokemon games was to get people to trade with each other. They didn't, I mean, yes, of course you had to physically meet at the beginning because you had to connect with the link cable.
The cable.
But it wasn't about like, oh yeah, you have to trade with specific people or you have to be in a specific place. It's just like, that just feels like such a weird addition to it, to me. And like, I get trading, I get why they would want to have trading, and having regionals enhances the trading. It gives you a reason to trade. Like, literally, it's there. They're just deliberately reducing that. But that's something that they want. Anyway, so I don't understand that. So that's one thing. The other thing is the Stardust cost. Why does it cost Stardust to trade? God. It's so annoying. And I mean, Stardust just in general in this game really, really annoys me, because every single thing in the game costs Stardust, basically, right? You want to, other than like catching and evolving, like that's it. Everything else costs Stardust. And it's really annoying because if you're wanting to power up your Pokemon, you don't just have to get one thing, you have to get two things. In fact, no, you have to get three things now, because if you want to get it above level 40, you have to get the XL candy as well. And it just, I do not understand this concept of, oh yes, there's going to be multiple different things that you need to get to do the one thing. And you're like, you literally have something that's Pokemon exclusive already. It's called candy. Just let me power up with the candy. I will accept the XL candy, blah, 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 whatever. Sure, you get it in the same way. It's still Pokemon exclusive. But then also having this thing that is not Pokemon exclusive, and therefore you have to balance which Pokemon you're going to use it on, is so annoying. And I do not understand why Stardust exists at all, other than to just make you annoyed, because you can't even buy Stardust. Like,
no, it's just like a cap.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
It's literally like, do you play the game your entire life? No, well, tough.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm not powering up any Pokemon just now because I know that in August I'm going to be seeing people in London from all over the world, and I want to trade with them, and so I'm going to need some Stardust, and so I am saving up that Stardust, but I want to be using it in other ways. Really annoys me.
I try to like only use Stardust when like it or power up when like I get a task that asks me to power up stuff.
Yeah.
Because also, too, it's like most of the Pokemon you want to power up cost so much Stardust.
Yeah, well,
because they're already such a high level.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like, I don't need to power up Pokemon, right? I'm not a competitive person. I don't really care. And people will always be like, oh, well, why bother powering up? And it's like, because I like it. Like, I want my Pokemon to have big numbers. What's wrong with having big numbers?
Yeah.
I want them to have bigger numbers. I like when I see the big numbers. That's not a bad thing.
It makes me feel good when I see that I have high-level Pokemon.
Exactly. I love looking at my fully powered up Melmetal that's 4,000 CP. Does it matter? No. Can I be happy about it? Just let me be happy about it, right? But no, they have to put all these things in our way to do it. And that's like, if you get rid of Stardust and you let me trade globally, there's very little that I would complain about this game.
Plus also, it's like, okay, they could let us trade globally, and they clearly have ways to add restrictions when you trade.
Yeah.
So they could easily just add a regional restriction.
They could, yeah.
On trading and let people do like a once a day international trade.
Yeah, I don't think they should, because I do think that the regionals plays into
Oh, yeah.
like regionals gives you a reason to trade, and it's like why restrict a thing that makes people do what you want them to do? Uh, because it's like, should we really actually be encouraging people to travel halfway around the world just to catch a
Well, that's
Pokemon?
the thing. It's like, who can afford that?
Well, who can afford that? And, you know, have you ever heard of climate change?
Well, yeah, that too.
I'm not saying don't travel, but I'm saying don't give people more reasons to travel for such frivolous things, because you know people are doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, I agree. While I am invested in Pokemon Go, as much as I hate saying that, I am definitely like a casual, quote unquote, player.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do the battles. I don't care about that. I like just check to see if I have a 4-star Pokemon because I like the idea of having a 4-star Pokemon.
Yes. Yeah, that too.
You know, like, that's it. I feel like some part of playing Pokemon Go gives me the satisfaction of cleaning up the game, where like, oh, I caught a bunch of Pokemon and now I have to go through my laundry list.
Organization the game. Yeah. Yeah, it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Loads of people who play Pokemon Go, they don't do that. They like never organize their Pokemon. And I just don't understand this. It's like every day I'm cleaning these things up. Like
Every day.
why wouldn't you? It's like the enjoyable part of my brain that likes organizing things, and it's easy. I don't have to get out my chair. Like
Especially now that they've added like all the different searches and stuff too.
yeah.
Like, my daily cleanup is me at the end of the day searching for 0-star and 1-star Pokemon
Yeah.
and just deleting the most recent Pokemon that I've caught up to a certain Pokemon where I know
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to delete that one.
Yep. Agreed. Same. It's so it's like so satisfying just going through and tapping on 50 Pokemon. Like
Yeah,
I
especially
don't know
now
why
too
people
that you
don't
can
do it.
like, especially now that you can do like mythical and event Pokemon if you choose to.
Oh yes, especially
one.
especially after the Meltan box days.
Oh my god, yeah,
They were dreadful before you could do that.
yeah. I used to not do them because I did not want to deal with that.
Yeah. I'm
Like, at
finally at the
all.
point where I think I will never need any more Meltan candy. It's like, yeah, I'm never going to, like, I now have one completely fully powered up Melmetal, one that's like 5 levels away, and I'm just not doing it because I need the Stardust just now. And my shiny one is not far off as well. So it's like, I don't think I need more than the 1,000 and candy that I have and the 500 XL candy. I think I'm
Yep.
fine now.
Oh, so wait, that's my other point with the candy thing too, is like, okay, so you want us to have Stardust and you want us to have this candy. Some of these Pokemon are so hard to get candy for.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, isn't that part of the whole thing? Like, if I'm walking
Yeah.
however long for however many days just to get extra candy with my stupid buddy because I never
Yeah.
see this Pokemon.
Yeah. 20 kilometers for a legendary and you get 1 candy.
Yeah, like,
You're like, 20 kilometers is a good week of walking.
yeah.
1 candy a week.
I used to be spoiled though, because like when I lived in the city, I lived above a gym, so I would do as many raids as possible a day,
Yeah.
and I would be like, you know, living in a pile of rare candy.
Oh, yes. My problem is that, like, every time I get like a decent amount of rare candy, it's like, oh, okay, and now I'll pump it all into this Pokemon to
Yep.
evolve it, because I did the event for that Pokemon and now I'm never seeing it again. So let's just use the rare candy for that one.
Yeah, I did that with I forget what it was, because also it's like I don't pay attention to the news all the time, so it's like, oh, I missed that event and I'm never gonna see that Pokemon again, like you said.
Yeah.
Like,
But this is a podcast about farming games. So, anything else you want to talk about what you've been playing? Because you just talked about Cafe Mix and Pokemon Go for what, 20 minutes?
no, I think that's about it.
Cool. I mean, I'm pretty well. Obviously, I've not been playing Cafe Mix because that game drives me insane. I don't know what it is about. I think the problem I have with Cafe Mix is that I don't feel like I can control it well. So like it's this weird like swinging round thing that I feel like is just I'm kind of guessing, and it doesn't feel accurate to me.
So I don't know if you've played since they did like the remix update.
No, I have not.
But I do think that they made the game so money grabby after that update, which is so frustrating. But I do think they updated the controls, but it is a game of pure chaos.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be times where I can navigate stuff with my like trail of Pokemon.
Yeah.
But there's also times where it's just me swiping my finger back and forth across the screen like as fast as I can.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I guess now because they do the updates pretty frequently again, which is nice. I'm very now I'm a completionist, so I'm like 25 stars away from having like the 3,150 stars that like you need to have all the levels complete.
Right.
So I think that's kind of like holding on to me too. And it's like the whole like they do events like every 2 weeks and stuff like that. So like, oh, if you don't do it, you miss this Pokemon. So it's kind of like Pokemon Go where they have their claws in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad I never truly got into that. I tried it when it came out and I was just like, no, I don't like. I really liked Shuffle. Even the like timed stressful levels. I enjoyed them, but it's because like it's very clear what you're doing. You're like switching this piece with that piece to make up a line. Great, fine. Whereas Cafe Mix was like, I don't know, you're making chains maybe. I think like it's really I don't like it.
There is some strategy to it, but it is also like pure luck a lot of the time.
Yeah. So I have not been playing Cafe Mix. What I have been playing is Pokemon Go, as we just discussed. And obviously Spiritfarer, because...
yeah, of course. Of course, Spiritfarer.
As usual, I left it to the very last minute, and I spent most of my time playing Spiritfarer today.
Hey, I did it yesterday, and I finished it today.
Classic. Well, speaking of Spiritfarer, shall we talk about the Spiritfarer updates?
Yes.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we did a previous episode on this, on the base game Spiritfarer, before any of the updates. And so, if you are interested in the game and you want to make sure that you're up to date on what we think about it, go listen to that episode. The link will be in the show notes. We will still be here when you're finished. I guess, is there anything we want to talk about that episode before we go off? I guess the key point was like this game broke us and we love it.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That is very fair. I think the weight of playing it last time is actually why I put off playing the DLC until literally yesterday.
Yeah.
Like every day this week I was like, I have 5 days until the podcast. I need to play the game. And I would just play Cafe Mix or Picross instead.
Kelly, I gave you like a month's notice of this. Come on.
I know.
In fact, it's been longer than that. We planned to have this done like 2 months ago. And then Apico decided to release just before we were going to do this episode. Classic.
That was your fault, Al, because I am terrible at deadlines as it is. So once you said, "Oh, push it off a month," I was like, "Okay."
So I shouldn't have told you until the day of and said, "We're not recording today, by the way."
That's the best way I function.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in a way I was like, I'm not sure whether this can live up to the original game. Which I don't know whether that was fair or not. And I get, I guess some people would have different opinions. I've been reading a lot of opinions on Reddit of the DLCs, which I find interesting just because I like to get other people's kind of views on what the characters meant, because obviously there's a lot of interpretation in these things.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously every person kind of reacts to every character differently.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. I put in this bullet point about summarizing the previous episode, then realized I didn't actually know what I wanted to talk about it. Go listen to that episode or don't. I don't really care. No, do go listen. I do care. Listen to my podcast.
Way to upsell.
There is one thing I want to talk about the base game before we get into the DLC. And that's that in the last episode, we both mentioned that we didn't really care about Elena. I specifically said I hadn't finished Elena because I just didn't care. And then you, I think, said, oh, yeah, I don't care about Elena either. And so we basically didn't talk about Elena. However, since actually finishing Elena's storyline, the really annoying thing about Elena is once she's gone, she then gives you more things to do.
Yeah.
But so after finishing Elena, I actually have a lot more appreciation for her character. And part of the thing is like, so I think the one thing we did mention about Elena was it's really nice that there was a character in the game who you couldn't hug. And that they actually put that in, like not everybody necessarily likes that physical contact, and that's a good thing that they have that. And you know, she's kind of this character that's like kind of almost standoffish, and you feel like you're always looking for the kind of guidance and maybe appreciation of you, and you don't feel like you're getting it. And then the interesting thing about after she's gone, how you still get these quests is I think it's not an uncommon experience that someone you know, when they've gone, when they have died, you still feel the effects of them afterwards. You know, whether it's something as simple as like someone who you need to clear out their house and you're like, there is so much here. They've not done anything with stuff for 50 years. And now I'm having to deal with this. You know, I'm still getting grief after they've gone. Or whether it's like to do with like the emotional things that they kind of affected you with, that then you live with for years, if not forever. I thought actually was a really nice addition. And actually the reasons that I didn't like Elena to start with are the reasons why it makes it a good character. And the standoffishness put me off from her, but that's the whole point of the character.
Yeah, I agree. I it took me longer, I think, to reflect on Elena because like my issue with her was I had her as one of my last passengers.
Yes.
So I felt like I was kind of getting like the short end of the stick with this character who didn't feel like they wanted me to be there or be on my boat.
Yeah.
You know, but I think looking back,
I think it was doing its job. I think Elena was doing her job then. Like that's the point.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I think
might
it's
be
like
wrong.
also,
A lot of these are interpretation, as we've mentioned, but I think that's the point.
I think it is too. I think it's also like, you know, clearly with the whole hugging thing, like I made the mistake of trying to hug her. Even though she said she didn't want to, in some like idea of like, well, that's how Stella handles everything. So maybe she's just being stubborn and she really does want to be hugged.
Yeah. Because I think there is another I can't remember, but I think there was another character that kind of like made the implication that they didn't want, but actually really did.
I think it was like Mickey and Bruce, maybe.
Possibly. I lose track. There's so many of them. They all affected me when I was doing them, but I it's been so long since I played them.
But I think also Elena is such a good example of not everybody shows like love or care in the same way. Like clearly she cared about Stella, but clearly she wasn't good at showing it. And I think even these like post-death tasks show that she was still thinking of Stella.
Yeah.
The whole time, which, you know, maybe it didn't show to Stella in the way that we would want to, but it's like that's the kind of person she was. And, you know, you have to accept that everybody's a little different, even if it does hurt you.
Yeah.
But I think Elena was definitely like a good lesson.
Yeah.
I think she's definitely rough at first, though.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on that because I feel like we did not give Elena the justice that she deserved in the last episode. So I wanted to write that before we get on to the DLC.
Yep, I'm glad we can give her a second chance.
I mean, that's Spiritfarer, isn't it? People having a second chance.
That is very true.
Before we get into the details of the new characters, which is, you know, basically the entire point of the DLC, there are a few technical improvements, quality of life improvements. So the first one is that when you have the Lily update, you are now able to travel at night, which was quite a big change.
I loved that.
I presuming if you start the game with the update, you only get the traveling at night when you encounter Lily for the first time.
So yeah, I did look into that because I was curious. Because like clearly, like at the point where we both we're at the game, most of the stuff is done.
Yes.
But so Lily doesn't show up, I think, until you get those like kind of bonus characters.
Right. Yeah.
So she's definitely like a later game. So you still don't get that like benefit of her in the early game, which makes sense though, because you're not getting any of those, boat updates or anything like that beforehand.
Yeah. So that was a big change.
For us.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, especially because like, you're at the end of the game. You just want to do the things that you have to do.
Yeah.
Like I finished every island prior to the DLCs.
I hadn't quite finished everything.
You could collect.
I hadn't quite got to that point, but I was pretty much finished every character, and I think I had like 3 quests and 2 upgrades or something left. So yeah, there was still very little for me to do at that point. So it does definitely helps because this is the thing, right? If you aren't able to travel at night and you've got like especially if you'd played just the Lily update. Mm-hmm. There would be very little for you to do, and so actually allowing you to travel the whole time massively reduces that grind, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was a great end of game update.
The other big update that I'm very happy about is that you can turn off the bus stop music.
So in my notes, I literally have night travel and then no more Alex music with multiple exclamation marks. Because I used to just sit on bus stops.
Yeah.
And like do stuff until I figured out where I wanted to go next. And just sitting there with that music. Oh my God.
Well, especially as like, because do you remember the discussion we had about how the fact that because you couldn't travel at night, I accidentally ended up stuck at a bus stop.
Yep.
And that was a nightmare. So yeah, it's funny because he gets a little bit offended when you do it, but
he
then
definitely
goes,
does.
But you know what? Fine, I'll put on my invisible headphones.
Yeah, he definitely hurt his feelings a little bit.
It's done really nicely, so you feel a little bit guilty doing it, but you still get to turn it off.
Yeah.
The final quality of life improvement I want to talk about is safe travel. So I haven't actually done this, but I think it's really good, and I could definitely see myself using it in some situations earlier on in the game. And so basically what it does is it stops all the events that you travel through. So that if you are going through a thunderstorm, you don't have to go and say, no, I don't want to do the thunderstorm. It just keeps going.
Oh my God, is that what that does?
Yeah.
I saw
they don't
the
make it very clear
it.
what it is.
No, I didn't even notice it at first, honestly.
Yeah.
And then as I was like really towards the end of like the DLC playthrough, I noticed it and I was like, what the hell is this? Where did this come from? Is this what? And at that point I had like been just like squatting on a bus stop, like not really going anywhere, just like waiting for the story to finish. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Because at first when I was playing through, like, I had to remember all of like the mechanics of the game and everything like that. And at one point I was going somewhere and I didn't realize I wasn't moving because I was just sitting.
Yeah.
Waiting for me to tell the game that I didn't want to do the event.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know how your boat is set up, but my boat, all of the dead passengers are at the very top of the screen.
Yep, definitely. That's how mine's set up as well.
So, it would literally always just be me running like a maniac up these like insanely long ladders.
Yeah, classic.
Definitely wish that was like more pronounced in the update.
Yes, yeah. So that's the main quality of life improvements. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes and other small things as well, but that's really all I felt the need to talk about. So we're going to talk about the characters. So there's 4 or 3 characters, depending on how you think about it. There was 4 characters, but like 3 storylines, I guess. And so we'll try and talk about them very superficially without spoilers, and then we'll, set off the klaxon, and if you don't want to hear the spoilers, that's the time to turn off. So first off, we have Lily, who's Stella's sister, and that's probably all we can say.
Yes. It's so funny because I'm just staring at my notebook like, can I say anything?
Yeah, what is not a spoiler? I think this was the first update. Maybe it's not a spoiler to say that Lily is not actually a passenger in the game. And that's probably all I can say. Probably intriguing enough.
Yeah, I guess if I were to add anything, I guess I would say, no, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait.
Okay, so next we have Beverly, who was Stella's neighbor, and that was the second update.
Yeah, she kind of reminded me a little bit of like Alice, the little hedgehog grandma.
Yeah.
Mixed with like Astrid, the like lion grandma.
Yeah. And then we have the third update was added in 2 characters, but they kind of have a meshed story, shall we say, because it's not the same story, but they have a meshed story, and that's Jackie and Daria. And Jackie is a nurse in the hospital, and Daria was what's the word I'm looking for? I've forgotten the word. Why have I forgotten that word? That's really bad. Person in the hospital.
A patient?
Patient! A patient in the hospital, and Jackie was Daria's nurse, and they have an interesting story that we'll talk about after the spoiler warning.
I do say their whole thing was interesting because you really have to like trigger their events, whereas like the other ones just naturally kind of happen.
There was a lot of times that I had to like figure out why I wasn't getting any more of that story. And interestingly, this is the one story I haven't finished at this point in the game.
Me too.
But I have looked up the end of it so that I'm fully prepared going in. But I was just like so close to getting it done, but I'm just it's just too many, because it's a lot of their story is very intertwined. So like you cannot finish Jackie until Daria is finished, but you can't start Daria until you're like halfway through Jackie. So it's like it's really intertwined, and so you've basically got one character and a second character in one, so it ends up being a really long story, which isn't a problem. Yeah. It's difficult when you've only started doing it on the same day that you're recording a podcast.
Yeah. Or do it the night before, because like I played yesterday and literally for like the last half hour before we started recording, I just had the game open so that the days would pass.
Yeah.
And still nothing would trigger. So I just ended up watching the very last ending.
Yeah. So
I was like, come on, just get it going.
So
I have stuff to do here, people.
Yeah. So those are the characters. We've probably said all we can about individuals and their stories. Is there anything else you want to mention before the spoiler warning?
I did think the name of the DLC was cute, that it's like the farewell edition.
Yes. Yeah, it ties in well to the overall story of Spiritfarer.
But I think that's all we could talk about.
Cool. This is your spoiler warning. We are going to talk about very intricate details of the DLC characters. So if you want to encounter that story before you listen to the podcast, now's your time to stop. And I would, if you do play the game, I would highly recommend playing through it before you listen to this, because it's very good.
I feel like if you listen to this beforehand, it might ruin some of the details of the stories.
Yeah. Okay, you have been warned. So let's talk about Lily. So the interesting thing about Lily is that Lily is not dead. And so isn't actually in the spirit world.
So I don't know if I was just being like a little like spacey when I was playing, but I didn't realize that at first. It took me until I realized that I could only hug her. Yes.
Yeah, I was a bit confused about how it started, just because it was very different to how all the other ones worked. And I was like, oh, so this is interesting. Like, how do I actually get her on the boat then? And then
so that's what I was like focused on too.
And then you actually read it, because it's the first one that you don't get on the boat. And so you eventually, I looked and saw that, oh, wait, no, it's told me to go to the shrine. So I'll go to the shrine. So you basically, you meet Lily, who like takes the form of like a whole bunch of butterflies.
A little like
Um,
fluffy butterfly monster.
yeah. And then you're told to basically go to like different shrines over the story. And you see little clips of what it turns out is, I don't think we knew this before this update, but it turns out that Stella is in a coma.
So I was trying to remember. I don't think you knew that. I know when like the last game ended, you knew she was sick because I like had completely finished that ending.
Yes. Yeah, we
But
knew she was sick, but I just assumed she had already died, but it looks like she's not dead, she's in a coma, and Lily is at her side telling her stories and talking to her and stuff like that.
yep, yeah, because that definitely changed how I had viewed the initial story.
Yeah.
Like I thought Stella was already dead and was helping, transport all these spirits to the next, whatever you want to call it, realm.
Yeah.
And then when she finally felt like she was ready, she went to the gate too.
Uh-huh.
But clearly, this Lily story kind of contradicts that.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of learn a little bit about like how Lily found out that Stella was sick, and then um it's interesting. So one thing I would say about this is once you've kind of gone through all the little bits of story, which we're not going to go into all the details, but you if you've already met all of the previous spirits, so not Beverly, Jackie, and Daria, if you've met all the other ones, you then get this Stella's final journey task, which means you go to the Everdoor and essentially die, I think is the implication at that point. I find it really odd that this was the first update and not the last update.
So that was my like first note once I finished it.
Uh-huh.
Because like I didn't expect it to be finished so soon too.
It's a very short
Yeah.
story.
And like I was thinking like, okay, like I waited for all the DLCs to come out. So like
Yes.
it's fine that I have this
Yeah.
task looming over my
Yeah.
head of my own death.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Do what you want to do to me, Lily. That's fine. Clearly you had some lingering feelings. But I did really enjoy like the getting to see Lily's side of Stella's relationship with those older characters.
Yeah.
And I also I thought their relationship that they talked about was kind of interesting. Like clearly Lily was kind of in Stella's shadow.
Standard sibling trope.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed like the little like clips looking back into their life. But yeah, like you said, I was so thrown off when I got the task saying go to the Everdoor. Because I was like, what? That was like 4 shrines. What do you mean? I have other people. I haven't even gotten on board yet. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I think that's probably my kind of main negative about that one. I do think it would have been weird if you'd played this update when it first came out. It would have felt very short as an update. And I think it would have made more sense at that point, like going to the Everdoor at that point, because you wouldn't have had these other updates coming. But it still feels like the final thing. Like, why was this not the final update? And it would have made more sense for that, because then they released the farewell edition. Like, it seems really weird. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. It just feels weird.
No, and I mean, I tried to think about it like, okay, like I had just finished, I had gone to the Everdoor, like everything was done. So it was kind of weird to get this, but then I was trying to think about it in like, okay, what if I had not played the game before? I feel like it would make more sense that way because you were able to go to the Everdoor before you finished some of the characters. Like the bonus characters. But at the same time, it did feel like kind of jarring experiencing like this. And like you said, if somebody had just played this as like their solo DLC, it would have been like, I feel like almost a tease because it's such a brief encounter that you're not like fully diving back into the world enough to like.
It's like 10 minutes of gameplay and 5 minutes of that is traveling.
So that actually was one of my points in my notes, is that before the DLCs, I mean, this is excessive and I had 100% of the game. But I put 400 hours into this game.
Uh-huh.
Like it was like 398. At this moment, I'm at 98% now again, and I am at 406 hours. So all of these DLCs took me maybe 10 hours. So, like, I know, granted, of course, they're all faster because I finished the game already, and, you know, you can get these characters at different times.
I would wonder, like, how much of that 400 hours was just collecting everything and doing all of the meals? I feel like maybe the meals was 300 hours in and of itself.
Probably. But no, that's why, like, I didn't want to, like, take away from that, because it's clearly, like, this is more content. And clearly it's a lot easier for me because I had to, like, you know, cut up some wood in the wood shop and, like, you know, make a few sheets of glass. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But I had all the materials.
Yeah.
And, like, if I didn't, I had access to get the materials, like, super quick.
Yeah, I don't think the DLC felt short to me. Obviously, it wasn't as long as the rest of the game, but I don't think you would ever expect that from a DLC. I guess my weird thing is, like, this Lily update was an update that was released on its own at one point. And if you had come across that at that point, you would have literally had 10 minutes of gameplay and you'd be done.
Like, I think I honestly would have been upset. I would have been upset if I had played it like that. Because, like, I feel like I was so invested in the original game that, like, to come back for 10 minutes of this.
Yeah.
And, like, these scenes made me cry. You know, like, they weren't, like, not all of them, but, like, they made me, like, you know, get a little teary and stuff. And I think part of that is, like, this little purple butterfly monster is, like, named Lily, and my little sister's name is Lauren, and her favorite color is purple, and she loves butterflies.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't always have, now we're much better, but we didn't always have the best relationship. So I do think there's definitely, like, that, just, like, family concept in general, kind of sadness, but...
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that it gave to me was, like, the kind of classic trope of every story has two sides to it. And it's like, yeah, you can see why Stella did what Stella did, but also, like, Lily was clearly hurt by, you know,
and you kind of get to
finding
see,
out the
like,
way she did and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with that.
No, it's all right.
But I was going to say, like, you also get to see, like, everybody loves Stella. Nobody has a bad thing to say about Stella besides maybe Elena. And even then, that's in, like, her, like, weird, like, kind of tough love way.
Yeah.
And it's not like Lily's saying bad things, but she's showing a side of Stella that, like, isn't necessarily as selfless or thoughtful, maybe, as, or happy and positive as some of the other passengers had showed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one definitely was... I liked it. I kind of just wish we got more, a little bit. And I know it's a DLC and all that stuff, but, like, I enjoyed hearing Lily's side. And she didn't even add anything to the actual ending, which kind of upset me. You know, I thought, like, oh, I'd get a different ending, and now you're with your little sister.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, like, it's I also don't feel like we got very much in terms of Lily's actual grieving. Like, it feels like Lily almost gets to the point of starting that. Like, basically that whole story was Lily reminiscing, and now she's about to start the grieving process, and we don't get to see that. Which is not necessarily bad, but it feels like that was kind of where it should have gone.
No, definitely. Because that's what I expected, I think. I think you get that final shrine, and I thought, okay, we've gotten Lily's perspective of Stella, but I want to hear more about Lily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I thought that's what we were going to get, and we didn't get it. And I still think it was a good DLC.
Yes.
I still really liked it, but it definitely left me feeling like I was going to get more.
Yeah. It would have been nice to have kind of see some more of that grieving process from that other side, because all the grieving we've seen before was essentially Stella grieving for other people that she has lost. And then this would have been an interesting way of seeing someone grieving for Stella. But I mean, it's fine. I enjoyed what it was, but yeah, it feels like they set up something that never came.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, like you said, I enjoyed it a lot. I also am glad I did not play it as a single DLC. But...
Yeah, definitely. Beverly. So as we mentioned, Beverly is Stella's neighbor, and her kind of whole thing is that she has Alzheimer's, which, as you mentioned, we see that a lot with Alice, and I did feel like in a way, it kind of mapped that a lot. Maybe I'm kind of missing something, but I'm not really feeling there was much new there. It was done in a different way, but very much like the same kind of broad strokes as Alice.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like Alice's whole story hurt me because as we talked about before, like that's what my grandma went through. That's what we
Yeah.
went through with my grandma. So it all hit very close to home. And I don't feel like Beverly's story impacted me in the same way. And maybe that's because Alice was Stella's first death patient and Beverly was her neighbor. I don't know if she was there when Beverly actually passed away.
Yeah,
So I don't know if it's a different kind of reflection on those two events, but I didn't feel like there was a big difference. Like a big enough, like, not difference. I just wish there was something more that made Beverly stand out more in her story, I guess.
yeah. I think that's yeah. I don't have a huge amount to say about Beverly because I feel the same. Like it was. I mean, I think it probably would have been more impactful had we not already had Alice. And the bits where you get Beverly saying the same thing that she said 3 times already still hurt,
Oh, definitely.
as they're always going to be, because that is the worst when someone goes through that. Having experienced that with older relatives a couple of times now, it hurts every single time. But that I don't feel like Beverly was unique in that in any way.
Yeah, I enjoyed her character. I liked going to find her little projector slides.
Yeah, I guess that was probably the interesting thing about Beverly was the addition of the projector.
But I feel like we didn't I feel like we got little bursts of her personality, and I don't know if it's because maybe she was further along in her Alzheimer's when she got on the boat. I don't know. But like I liked it when she kind of like talks about her crush on that architect, and then all of a sudden she's like, you know what? Nah, never mind him.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think it's kind of funny that she gets 2 houses.
Yeah. I also felt I was a bit offended. Like she's like, oh, go and get the designs for my house, and you do, and you build it, and she's like, how could you even consider that I would live in a house like this? And you're like, whoa, calm down there. Like, what's this about?
Yeah, and she leaves.
Yeah, she's like, oh, go, I'm leaving till you sort it out. And you're like, whoa, okay. It's like it's
I
not
have
like
a
her
guest
her
house.
actual farmhouse was any special.
Yep. But also, like, I have a guest house. You could just stay in the
Yeah,
guest house while
like
I
everybody
make you
else
a new
does
house.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
odd.
I thought that was kind of weird. Like, I thought her story was interesting, but I kind of wish they pushed it further, I guess,
Uh-huh.
to give her something a little more.
Okay, well, let's go on to the most interesting and unique of the update storylines, and certainly not on a happier note. Jackie and Daria. So, from what I have gained from this, based on what I played and then what I've looked up, Jackie was a nurse, as mentioned, in the hospital. Daria was a patient. Why did I forget that word again? I don't understand what it is about that word. Was a patient with clearly some very severe mental health problems. And it seems like Jackie was not a very kind person to Daria.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just a general story about mistreatment of people with mental illnesses, which of course we know has happened for the entirety of human history, and we would like to think has probably improved a lot, but still definitely does exist.
Yeah, I thought like Jackie's whole story was an interesting parallel to Stella, kind of, because they did work at the same hospital together. But you kind of as the story goes on, you get that resentment that Jackie kind of feels about the way that Stella is able to hold herself.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely got that at all. Like Jackie definitely felt like Stella was better, but didn't know how to deal with that. And Stella could see the humanity in people that Jackie couldn't. And I feel like Jackie probably had under so, good intentions at the beginning, but was beaten down a lot by what they had to see and go through. And at some point that just flipped and they stopped caring.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think one of Jackie's like big character qualities is their resentment towards not just Stella, but towards life,
Existence.
towards the hospital,
Yeah.
towards the patients, towards Daria.
Uh-huh.
Like there's even at one point, I don't remember what he said, but there was something that made it seem like he was almost kind of jealous of the patients getting cared for. Even though they're living in this like rundown hospital that's like, falling apart and serving awful food. Like he's almost like jealous of the fact that somebody cares about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, we meet these two in a version of the hospital. I wonder how much of this is kind of accurate to what the hospital was, or how much of it is in Jackie's mind.
Yeah, definitely. Which I don't know if you did the shenanigans for the hospital.
I think so. Yeah.
So like you like help them like fix up the hospital, right?
I don't think I finished that one, but I definitely started it and like gathered like the different like the chefs and stuff like that. And
Yeah. So
yeah,
like
I definitely
I
did
think
some
it's
of it.
like it's hard because like part of it is like it seems like from those chain of events, Jackie was part of the issue
Uh-huh.
of why the hospital was bad. But if you
Yeah.
really think about it, there's no way that one orderly
No.
would make a whole hospital that bad, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's kind of like the idea that we're supposed to get, and that's like how do I say this? I don't know.
I guess like it's, a lot overemphasized based on Jackie's self view.
Yeah.
And it's almost like all these years of dealing with stuff that he obviously doesn't want to deal with, and that is really hard to deal with for even people that really want to deal with it or really want to help with it. And obviously nobody wants to deal with it, but you know what I mean? Really wants to help people. Has massively affected his how he views himself as well as how he views everyone else and the hospital in general.
Yeah, so I think that idea is one of like the core components of like the difference between Jackie and Stella.
Yeah.
Is Stella
always sees the good in people and
that too.
The job.
That too, definitely. But Stella chose to go into this career path where Jackie it was a job.
Yeah.
So I think that also just shows the difference that like how different two people in the same environment can handle like all of those situations. But
yeah,
I was upset with Jackie at the first half, but then I think he redeems himself afterwards. Not like he needs to redeem himself, but I think he does some introspection and realizes what he's been doing and how he's been projecting and how it's hurting other people.
I think I would disagree with you there. I do think he does need to redeem himself because clearly he has mistreated Daria.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
that's
no matter what he's gone through, what he did was wrong. Full stop.
Yeah.
Whether he actually we get an implication at one point that there was physical altercation, and I don't know whether that was like a kind of emphasis for the game and in the spirit world, or whether that was actually saying that at one point he did hit Daria. I don't know about that. But even if that wasn't the case, he definitely mistreats her mentally and emotionally, and just sees Daria as a husk of a person, as a crazy person, as
a nuisance.
And yeah, exactly, just someone to deal with rather than someone that actually has, and like there's a point where you go in and you give Daria the instrument, and Jackie gets so angry at you, like, no, I told you to leave Daria alone. I can't remember exactly what he says, but basically implies that she's just, crazy old person. He can't be trusted with something like that.
Basically, you gave her like a sharp instrument and like,
yeah,
she's a danger to us. end
And
herself,
music is
like, kind of thing.
about the only thing that Daria seems to find joy in life at this point. Which I loved as just a kind of throwaway point, like music. I'm sure, I feel like we had this in the main game as well, but like just this whole music can do wonders to people's mental
Oh,
health,
with like
no matter what it is. Yeah, maybe
Summer
that's
and
what.
her
Yeah, maybe
song.
that's what it was. Yeah. But just I like that in general.
No, I did too. I thought that was like a fun way to like kind of tie the game back to the start. Because
Yeah,
I think Summer is one of like the earliest characters. But I do think you're right. I kind of forgot somehow about Jackie's violent behavior towards
yeah,
Daria. Because not even that though. There's a point where Jackie asks you to feed the patients,
yes,
and you go and you collect the sludge food, but you can feed them real food. And I fed them real food, and they were all so happy. And then Jackie was so mad at me
yeah,
because I'm Stella and I'm having fun and I'm bringing joy to these patients' lives, but Jackie won't be able to do that tomorrow.
yeah.
And there was that idea, but there was also like, I don't know if I just thought that this was the implication, but I feel like when Jackie said that, he was also kind of implying that they didn't deserve better than the sludge.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot, I think it's important to say that I don't think that Jackie is inherently like bad and trying
No.
to do these things. I think has been beaten down by the system so much. But that doesn't
Totally, he's at the end of
excuse
his rope. Yeah.
exactly. But that doesn't excuse what he did. And
No,
I think
yeah.
it's important that if you're in a job like that and you have got to that point,
You
it's
gotta
better
leave.
not to be there than to cause more problems than what you help. And I feel like that's the
Yeah.
kind of the point it's bringing across.
And I do think that he did physically attack Daria because Daria does talk about like getting I think like not chained down. What's the tied down or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, there's also in her room, I don't know if you noticed, but there's like a beaten up piñata that's been like bandaged a bunch of times
Oh no, I
of a
hadn't
bat.
noticed that.
So I kind of thought that was like symbolism
Yeah.
for
Yeah. I think it's talking about a lot of things here, and it's mainly about like the treatment of people with mental health in institutions. And that has been terrible over years. And, whether it's even just simple things like tying someone down, whether it's physically beating them or, whether it's things like,
taking their music away.
taking things away that give them joy, or, what was that procedure they used to do to some people?
Lobotomies?
Lobotomies, stuff like that, like taking away their very essence. Really, just horrible things that I'm sure are still guilty of in many cases. Not lobotomies over. I'm sure nobody's doing lobotomies anymore, but many cases. And as someone with a child who is autistic, and I suspect, he's non-verbal at this point in time, and I suspect had he been around, 100 years ago, he probably would have been in an institution and would have been having a miserable life, and that really gets me a lot. Not that you have to have, real life experience of these things to get why they're horrible, but yeah,
No,
I think
I feel like it hits closer to home too when you.
it does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't live with that experience, so I still thought this whole interaction was awful. But I'm sure it hit much closer to home with you.
Yeah,
Just thinking about Nathan.
Yeah, I just like it really hurts the idea that we can be so cruel to people who are like in general some of the nicest people in the world, and they just want to exist and be happy and see joy, and we want to mold them into what we think of as appropriate to society, or we want to lock them away because they're a problem, and that we're so bad at that. If you don't fit the mold, you shouldn't exist.
Yep. Yeah, and if you don't fit the mold, we're gonna find a place to put you to make it seem like you don't exist. So
yeah, we don't want to have to deal with that.
Heavy stuff.
A happy episode. This is a farming game podcast. Did you know that?
So, did you do any farming when you replayed? Because I did a little bit, but not much.
Yeah. Oh no, I did.
Okay.
What are you going to do in those time when you're traveling? Like, you got to do something.
Yeah. No, honestly, that's why I farmed, because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what else am I going to do? Because also, like, the only passenger I had left on my boat was Buck.
I know. It took me ages to realize he just never disappears.
No,
You're just like,
he never
just
leaves.
infinite quests.
Yes. So before the DLC, I had like, at a certain point, I was like, okay, I need to quit the game. All I'm doing is Buck quests.
The same ones the same 5 quests over and over
it's the same
again.
thing. And at that point, I had like literally done everything on the map. Everything had been found. I was like, okay, once these quests are done, I'm quitting. Like, that's it. We're going to the Everdoor. It's done. Because I can't end the game if I have a quest.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's one of these things, and it's why I'm kind of annoyed about the other thing about the Lily update is like, if you go back into the game after you've done the go to the Everdoor after the Lily update,
like resets, right?
It's still there, and you're just like, I just want to get rid of it. Just let me get rid of it. Like,
yeah, like I said before, I think that is such a great metaphor for it looming over your head, but like at the same time, as like a person who needs to complete it.
Yeah.
It kills me.
Yeah, stop trying to make a very good point and let me play my game.
Please. Like, you can hide it. It'll still be there. Just take it away from me.
There's no reason why you can't still let people go back to the Everdoor and replay that bit. But that doesn't need to be in the list of quests.
Yeah.
That are undone. I can't stand. It was like with Zelda Breath of the Wild. It was the same. Like, the final story quest you can never finish because as soon as you do it, you then restart back into the game just before you've done it.
Yep.
Also, just as a side note, I went. Just as a side note, I went to the Everdoor. I sent off Elena and then accidentally did the Stella going to the Everdoor after Lily quest as well at the same time.
Okay.
And when I came back into the game, Elena was back because it had saved when you arrive at the Everdoor.
Oh, I would just assume that once you send anybody through the Everdoor, it would save. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's like a checkpoint.
Didn't save.
Oh my God. She's haunting you.
So I had to send her away again. I was like, well, I am mashing through this. I don't need to hear your story again.
Oh my God. Don't you feel so bad though in those moments? It's like I know I'm supposed to be sad, and now I'm just like careening as fast as I can through this, like, what's supposed to be like
a really heartfelt
emotional moment. Yeah.
The end of someone's life, and I'm trying to get through it as quickly as possible.
I felt like that when I was watching Jackie's ending, because that's the only one I hadn't finished.
Yeah.
And I'm literally like double tapping on my phone to get like YouTube to do like the 10 seconds to like fast forward.
I just need the content. I just need to know the end. Oh dear. Yeah. Well, is there anything else before we finish up? I guess I would say that we've obviously talked about there are some. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say we didn't really do Daria.
Oh yeah. Well, I was talking about them both kind of at the same time. I don't know. Was there stuff you felt was unsaid about Daria?
I was just gonna say that I liked her little mini games.
Yeah, it was interesting. And I definitely feel like you got a view of a kind of insight into the problems, the mental health problems that Daria was going through in that moment. Like, I thought they did a good job of going like the way that it was depicted when you were doing the platforming.
Yeah, I thought like the platforming was like a cute little thing, but I really liked the visuals.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you looked through them in the projector room, but they give you like character notes.
Right. Yeah.
So in hers, it tells you that she has a form of synesthesia.
Oh, right. Interesting.
So she has chromesthesia. I don't know how to pronounce it, honestly. So she sees colors like that.
Fascinating.
Which I thought was like really cool in like you get to see the world in her way.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But I also liked it tied in with the bat too, because like I thought that made a lot of sense with like echolocation.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I hadn't noticed that.
I also just thought her character was really interesting because I as far as I took it, I think she had schizophrenia. And I mean, this is up to interpretation. I tried to look it up on Reddit, and like nobody has a clear answer.
Yeah, that's one of these things with Reddit is like everybody has different opinions and theories on these things.
But I have like, a mental illness history running through my family. Like my uncle has bipolar disorder. I have had depression. I have a few other things that, probably aren't fully diagnosed or whatever.
A handful of mental illnesses.
Just anxiety disorder, maybe something else. But when I was like,
nothing too serious. Yeah.
When I was like 23, I had a really bad depressive episode, and I thought I was schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going to a doctor for it. And I mean, who knows? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think so. But the issue was I was hearing things that weren't there. Mm. And Daria talked about that. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like such an interesting thing because like it sounds like nothing, but I used to get into fights with my family about these sounds that I was hearing that like other people weren't hearing.
Yeah.
And so I think that one kind of hit really close to home because it was something I had experienced, like this like upset and rage that she felt when people didn't believe her.
Yeah, yeah.
Or didn't understand these emotions that she was feeling or like the world as she perceived it.
Yeah.
So I thought that whole depiction, I thought it was fun, like fun quotation marks, like the way that they brought to life her issue, like her issues with handling mental illness,
Yeah.
But yeah, besides that, she was a pretty quick one. I was kind of shocked by how little time on the boat most of these characters had.
Yes, I think it's only even Beverly isn't really on the boat that year. She feels like the most normal. I don't mean that in a. That sounds really bad.
Tell us how you really feel about these characters.
In an episode where we've been talking about mental illnesses and I go and call someone normal. Oh my word, that's me. I'm cancelled. Goodbye. Standard character, shall we say.
Yeah. She fit the mold of like the other characters the most, I think.
Yes. But I like that they were doing different things. But you could still kind of interact, other than Lily, you could interact with the ones not on the boat in the same way. You could still hug them and feed them and talk to them in the same way that you would when they're on the boat, which I quite liked.
Yeah, I definitely... I thought Jackie was just gone after the incident.
Yeah.
Like, I did not expect them to show up. And so apparently I was looking into it, and apparently, like, Buck or whoever is on your boat is supposed to be like, oh, I heard a noise upstairs. And that triggers a quest.
Okay.
That didn't happen for me. Jackie was just in a house and scared the crap out of me. As I was like walking around, there's like a figure in one of my dead player houses.
Oh, no.
Like I was like, oh my God.
Terrifying. Especially with like Jackie being a hyena, a large hyena. Like that's not that's you're probably a pretty scary figure to just randomly see on a boat in the dead of night when all of your passengers are gone except you and Buck.
Oh, the other thing was I did like what they changed with Buck's quests, like the loot review thing.
What changed about them? Because I never did them before the update.
So in the last one, you would essentially like get a set, from what I remember, you would get a set of quests from Buck. And you would basically just get like, I think it was like a series of like, say 3 quests.
Yes.
And they were basically like the same quests over and over again. But the thing was, once you finished them, the next day Buck would basically give you another set of quests. So with this, it was like they set it up a little different where you'd get a piece of mail and then you'd have to like search on the treasure map.
Okay,
which was interesting. Yeah. The treasure map thing was very frustrating at certain points.
Yeah, I just Googled
but like in a kind of fun way. At a certain point, I Googled a few of them because I was like, I know I am right near this.
I don't find those fun. And I think it's partly because I don't have any visual memory. So I can't like...
I took
look at the picture and then but even then like I just can't visibly map them on. It's just I just really struggle with that. And they also
there were certain things that like
they were quite abstract as well.
Yes, that's what I struggled with the most is like an island would be the right shape but it wouldn't be facing the right way.
Yeah.
And like
Which I
stuff
guess
like
is
that.
probably a point they're trying to make about old cartography or whatever. But you know what? This is a game about death, not about cartography, right? Just give me the coordinates already.
Yeah. There is definitely like a few where I'd be like either really close and like just slightly off.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like two where I had no idea what they were. So I just Googled those.
Yeah, I wasn't
but I
taking
liked
any
the whole
time on them. I
setup of
didn't
like,
find it fun.
yeah, that's fair. But I did like the whole setup of like, okay, you get a piece of mail, you do the quest, and
Yeah.
then 2 days, like a day and a half, whatever, every other day, that's the way to say it, you would get another one.
Yeah.
And you knew that there would only be 6 of them. So I knew that when I finished the 6th quest, I would be done with Buck's quests. Unlike those previous quests where he would just spring them upon me.
Forever.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, I'm stuck in this cycle where I can't go through the Everdor because I have one of stupid Buck's quests. And I have to go find Francis or something.
The important question is, can you now get 100% on the load screen?
So I don't think I'm technically there yet because I basically just have Jackie. I need Jackie to trigger take me to the Everdors scene.
But is it possible to get 100%? That's my question.
Well, I'm at 98% right now. And
yeah,
so when
but
I
is that
logged
going to
in
get
for
you to 99 or is it going to get to 100?
That's the question. So I think it's 98 and then I think Stella going through the door.
Yeah,
is
see, this is
100.
the
And
problem.
then you're never going to actually have 100.
Well, that's the thing. If they're never going to let me actually see 100% on that screen,
Yeah.
I am going to finish the stories and then I'm going to leave it because I'm not doing all those food items and all of that nonsense if I can't actually see 100% on the load screen. I'm just not going to do it. Can't do it. Can't deal with that.
Let's see what Google says.
I mean, presumably you'll know in like 10 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah, that's true.
So I need you to tell me once you've finished whether it says 100% or not, because you're very close.
So it's funny though, because I didn't think the DLC was that big, but when I logged back into the DLC, I was brought down to like 72%.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
And it really like kind of messed with me because I was like, I swore I had finished the whole game, and like I get that it's a DLC, but like.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
always kind
so-
of I'm kind of mixed on these. What I think you should do is have a second percentage for DLCs. So there's either that option which you just say where you bring down the percentage, or there's the Turnip Boy way of doing it, which really annoys me, where you go above 100%.
That's what Hollow Knight did.
It really annoys me because you're like, well, what is 100%? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, well, where is the end point? When you're doing it normally, the
Yeah.
end point is 100%. When you've got
Yep.
other things, what is the end point? So I think you should have a second one, which is DLC percentage, and that just caps out at 100% again. And sure, that percentage will go up much quicker than the main game one did, but then you've got two 100%s. Done.
Yeah,
that's it.
which is
Simple.
nice. That's always nice. The only reason I like that mechanic in Hollow Knight is because if they had not introduced their like 3 DLCs, I would not have achieved 100%.
Yeah, but you didn't.
But I'm at
though. You didn't.
But
you
I'm
didn't.
at 104%
No, you're not.
of 112%.
No, you're not. It doesn't. You're not. You've not done 100%. This is the thing. How can you accept that in your mind? You've not done it all. Like 100%.
Because I needed to stop playing the game.
100%. Well, this is the thing. I just get to the point where I either go and finish it or I say this is impossible, and it's why I never went back and finished all of the stuff in Zelda Breath of the Wild, because it was like, I will never get 100%. I just don't
Yeah.
feel the need to do that.
Yeah, I think for me it was more of like this idea that like when I first started playing Hollow Knight, I had viewed it as like, it's supposed to be this like, I mean, it is a hard game.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that it was a game that I could play when I first started playing it.
Yeah.
So I think for me to be able to achieve 104% felt really good.
Okay.
And it made me think like, okay.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Kelly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's
Whereas
how
it just-
can I
it just
lie
annoys
to my
me.
own brain.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Because it does annoy me too. But I think at a certain point I have to make myself accept that it's okay.
Well, see, that's just where I go. That's when I have to. I say to myself, it is impossible. Therefore, you have to stop. Like,
Well, that's essentially what I did with Hollow Knight. I was like, okay, the rest is impossible for me to complete. I know other people can do it, but I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So this is my 100% quote unquote. Like, that's it.
Yeah. It's not that I need to 100% every game, but it's like I'm not
No,
going to
same.
bother trying if it's not physically possible to see 100% on that screen, because the whole point of 100%ing a game is to see the 100% and say this is done. There's nothing else I
Yeah.
can do. But if you get to the point where it says 98% or 99% and you cannot bring up that 1 or 2%, I will feel like I have wasted half of the time of this game doing these stupid things that I didn't need to do.
Listen, I have done every island in this game. Like, I'm telling you, nothing is left untouched. So luckily, Google says that you can get 100%, even with the last
Okay,
DLC.
no, that's annoying because now I'm going to feel the need to do it.
See, like, there was no good answer because you would have been upset if it says, no, you can't get 100%, because then it would have been, oh, well, I can never complete this.
I think the only really annoying thing for me is the cooking, because there's just so many that I've not done. But we'll see what I think. Looking at like all of the other collection things, like
I don't think you need
done half of them.
Unless they added some new recipes.
They did.
Because I had completed. I think at the end I cheated on the cooking.
How did you not know they'd added new recipes? One of the new recipes is literally in Beverly's story.
Oh yeah, yes. So that makes sense. I think it's been such a long time since I originally played the first game.
Right. Okay. You just didn't.
That like a part of me was like,
maybe you just forgotten.
Essential. Yeah, like that type of stuff. But now as we're talking about it, I remember being so annoyed because I would try all these things, and in the end, it's like, even the order in which you put the food in matters.
Yeah.
And that as an amount of options is just insane to me.
Yeah. I just feel like for the cooking, I would just be going through a list and doing it, and I don't think I'd find that fun. But
yeah, I mean, whatever. I did as much as I could on my own, and then I think I had like, a few recipes left. Like this last DLC recipe set was really easy because it's like one main ingredient, and then you can only add in the ingredients that they let you add in.
Yeah.
But no, towards the end of that one, I think I had like, 5 or 6 recipes left, and I was just like, nope, I don't know what these are. I'm not going to sit here and just spend all my food trying to figure it out.
Cool. Well, I guess I would conclude this as I guess some of the stories felt like they weren't fully complete in the DLC, but that's okay. And they still managed to make more stories that completely destroy my emotions. Congratulations.
Yep. I definitely do wish in some way that, like, I think playing them as a DLC afterwards, not that it, like, fully takes away from them, but I think there's something that you don't have that's the same as playing them.
Yeah.
As part of the main story.
I actually think I appreciated these more because, like, by the time I got near to the end of the original one, I was just doing it to finish it, whereas I was coming almost back in with fresh eyes for these ones, so it was like a new game.
That is very true. I definitely feel like I was like, especially with like Elena's tasks.
Yeah, well,
getting
exactly.
Worn
like,
down.
That's the thing. Like, I just didn't care to do Elena's tasks originally, and then I came back in and I was like, well, let me just do them because it's, I'm fresh. It's been over a year since I played this game. Let's do it, and actually really appreciated it.
That is true. That is a very good point. But I liked the DLC. I thought they did a good job with it.
I wonder if me having not fully completed the game previously added to that, and so like there was more stuff I was doing than just the DLC this time around.
That's definitely probably it. Because like I said, I was just literally driving my boat around doing nothing.
Yeah.
At like the end of my last game, so I think that definitely would like, because you still had Elena and like you still had other things to do. It helps to kind of like tie it in.
I hadn't finished Buck's stuff and I hadn't finished Elena. And there were maybe 3 or 4 side quests and 2 upgrades I think I was doing as well. So it was still quite a few things that I was doing.
Yeah, you definitely had more of like, I feel like an immersive experience finishing them.
There was at least one of everything that exists in the game that I hadn't completed. So you still get that full kind of game loop.
That was like, I was so excited to have a new place, but I kind of wished for more new places. Yeah. Like, I don't want to sound greedy. I don't want to sound like I didn't enjoy the DLC. I really
give me more free stuff. No, I get what you mean.
But like it was just kind of like it's like when if you have like a really good book or show and you like go to revisit it, but like they only put out like a a preview of what you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's like I really don't want to replay the game because I've already put all my time into it and I really liked the game a lot. But I don't want to be that sad again.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kelly, for joining me for yet another very joyful conversation.
Hey, well, I mean, to be fair, I think last time we almost cried on mic, so this one's better. Yeah.
Kelly, where can people find you on the internet?
My name is Rallamieu. It's RALLAMIEU. I can't spell. That's like Instagram, TikTok, I think maybe Twitter. I don't know. I don't use Twitter. I don't care about Twitter.
I will link to that in the show notes, listeners, so you don't have to figure out what letters.
Yeah, you can cut
Kelly,
out my
what letters Kelly just said.
Do you know what the worst part is? I'm looking at it. So just cut that whole thing out.
No, I'm keeping it in. It's funny.
Oh, no.
You can find me on Twitter at the Scottbot. Scott has one T. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at THSPod, where I retweet a lot of pod farming game news and some really bad replies to other tweets. You can email us from our website, harvestseason.club, where you can find links to everything else that we have, including the Patreon, where we have a number of things, including bonus episodes of the podcast called The Greenhouse. In the next episode of The Greenhouse, me and Kelly talk about gardening. Yep. I think that's everything. Thank you all for listening. Thank you again, Kelly, for joining me.
Thank you, Al, for having me. It was a pleasure, as always.
And until next time, have a good harvest.
The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley, with support from our pro farmer level patrons, Kevin and Stuart. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode. Thanks for listening.
And I forgot to mention that you should say that as well.
Oh.
So just say it. Just say it and I'll edit it in.
Oh, have a good harvest. It's so funny because when we both, like, when you paused after, I was like, wait. Oh no, am I supposed to say something here? It was like, he'll tell me.